Yep.
Recording in progress.
Welcome, everybody. I'd like to open up the Planning Commissioner meeting Thursday, November 7th, 6 p.m. Can we get a determination, a quorum, please?
Linda Kennedy.
Present.
Thank you, Linda. Francine Donchik.
Present.
Michael Flick.
Present.
Daniel Lazareski.
Present.
Kate Nelson.
Here.
Pat Phillips has informed me that she will not be present tonight. So please let the record reflect she will not be in attendance. And Rob Pierce.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's do Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Mike Flick's going to do it. Flick's going to do it.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ethics law announcement, please. Miss Jennifer.
You're good.
Good. Okay. Commissioners are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the commission today, number one, you have received a gift or loan. Number two, you have a pecuniary interest. Number three, you have a commitment in a private capacity, such as a family, employment, business, or similar relationship. Or number four, if you've provided representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter being considered here tonight, please remember to disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. And furthermore, please abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter if it's clear that the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Commissioners are also reminded that under the Planning Commission rules, if you've had any contact outside this meeting with any persons interested in a matter coming before the commission today, please remember to disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting. And then I'm also going to go ahead and read the instructions for joining us remotely and for providing public comment. Obviously, this meeting is held here today in the County Commission chambers. It's also being held over Zoom webinar. For those of you who wish to participate via Zoom, please log into the Zoom webinar at the link that's found on page 1 of your notice of meeting and agenda. Or you can join by typing zoom.us into your computer browser, clicking Join a Meeting on the Zoom website, and entering meeting ID number 842-7265-9406. For those of us who can join, do not have a computer or wish to join by telephone only, you can dial 1-669-900-9128 and enter meeting ID 842-7265-9406 and press pound. The instructions for providing public comment today. Members of the public who wish to submit public comment can do so either by attending the meeting in person, attending the meeting via teleconference, or attending by telephone only. If you wish to provide public comment via Zoom, log into the Zoom webinar at the link on the first page of your agenda. And during public comment periods, you can utilize the raise hand feature. To provide public comment via telephone only, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute or unmute. Thank you.
Thank you. Appeal procedure, Mr. Lloyd, please.
Most decisions rendered by the Planning Commission are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission and you qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Planning Commission, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and the application fee.
Thank you. At this time, I want to open up the general public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
I have no general public comment in chambers, nor do I have any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, we will close public comment. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to item 6, approval of November 7th agenda. Is everybody good with it? Can I get a motion?
Chair Pierce, this is Commissioner Donchik. I move to approve the agenda for the November 7th, 2023 meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Nelson will second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, that moves us on to number 7, approval of the October 16th, 2023 draft minutes. So everybody had a chance to look at it? Is there any corrections?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Let me find it first. On page 6 of 14, second paragraph, starting with the word sufficient. It says sufficient, I said sufficient power plants to power all the electrical needs. So I want the word power plants put in there instead of plans.
Oh, okay. Is that all?
I think that's it.
Okay, so we have an amended draft minutes. Anybody else have anything? No? Can I get a motion?
Chair Pierce, this is Commissioner Donchik. I move to approve the minutes for the Monday, October 16th, 2023 meeting with the amended change.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. That moves us on to item number 8, public hearing, abandonment case number WAB 23-003 for Waterman. Mr. Lloyd, will you please announce?
Yeah, will do. For hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve an abandonment of Washoe County's interest in the southern 40 feet, the southern easement boundary to be aligned with the 5,458-foot contour line of the existing drainage easement encompassing the northern portion of the property located at 211 Waterman Court. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Planner Tim Evans.
Thank you. Tim Evans, planner. So the case before you today is abandonment case number WAB 23-003 for Waterman. The proposed project is located at 211 Waterman Court with APN 156-06114. And to the right of the screen, you can see, or on the screen, you can see the subject parcel highlighted. The parcel is 1.16 acres and is surrounded by parcels that are developed with single-family dwellings or are vacant. The parcel is also located within the boundaries of the forest area plan and is zoned low-density suburban. So the request before you today is for an abandonment for Washoe County's interest in the southern 40 feet of the existing drainage easement on the property. So as you can see there, this is the site plan that was submitted with the abandonment application, and the actual area of abandonment is highlighted in that bluish kind of color. So the purpose of the request for this abandonment is so the property owner can construct a dwelling, and the purpose of the drainage easement itself is to serve as one of multiple detention ponds for stormwater drainage of the St. James Village subdivision. So it was originally put in place when the subdivision was created. Oops. There we go. And so a hydrology study was done by CFA Inc. here in Reno, which found the easement had excess capacity and would be adequate to serve the subdivision after abandonment. And the abandonment, I want to state this perfectly clear, will not impact the ability for the easement to properly serve the subdivision as it was originally intended. So with this abandonment, the easement will still be able to do its job and serve the subdivision properly. So the project was sent to 13 agencies for review, and one agency provided conditions, which are included as Exhibit A of the staff report. And 34 parcels were noticed, and one email was received as a result of the noticing. Staff did discuss the project with the commenter and provided them the staff report. I believe they may provide public comment today in relation to this project, and you may have received that public comment as well that I received via email. It should have been forwarded to the commission. All right, so staff is able to make all three required findings as detailed on pages 7 and 8 in the staff report. And staff recommends approval with conditions and provides the following possible motion on the screen and within the staff report. And I am available for any questions, and the applicant is also available.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant wanting to make a presentation? No? Oh, yes, okay.
My name is Stephen Packer, the owner of the property. I want to thank you for your time and attention and consideration. Other than to compliment Planner Evans, I don't think I have much to add. There was a very thorough hydrology report done by CFA engineers, and I think that the staff report speaks for itself. So I'm going to take up no more of your time. Thank you. Unless there are any questions, of course.
We'll have public comment, and then we'll come back and see. All right, at this time, I want to open up public comment for this matter.
In chambers, I have Andreas Helfenstein. If you could please state your first and last name for the record.
Andreas Helfenstein. Thank you, Planning Commission, for allowing those affected by the Waterman application to speak.
Can you move the microphone closer to your mouth?
Sure, sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Like I said, my name is Andy Helfenstein. I've been a Reno Tahoe resident for 40 years. Tatiana and I, we own the neighboring residence, which is 415, Lot 415, or 213 Waterman Court. 213 Waterman shares the same drainage pond easement, which will directly be harmed by the proposed actions outlined in the application before you. There's 5 reasons we're requesting the Planning Commission not provide an abandonment full or partial. Number 1 is the drainage easement is a private easement. If you look in the St. James Village Unit 1C tract map 3261, it's marked private. Since Washoe County does not own the easement in question, it cannot abandon them. And then as referenced in the St. James Village Unit 1D improvement plans, page 4, note 3, a private service drainage easement is reserved on each lot for natural drainage from uphill lots. And note 5, no owner or tenant shall obstruct a drainage easement. And the second point is the drainage easement is a detention pond that directly affects 4 lots. The proposed reduction of the detention pond will negatively impact the 3 remaining lots, which ours is one of those. Number 3, the drainage abatement does not support increased flood mitigation strategies. The City of Reno proposed to amend the Reno Municipal Code Title 12, Chapter 12.17, a stormwater utility fee. So there's a new movement by the city to increase flood mitigation, and there's a proposed big dollar amount that people would need to pay. And abating this drainage easement is not consistent with that at all. And number 4, flood risk has increased since the 1997 St. James study, I believe, based on the actions by the city. And then lastly, number 5, neighboring residence structures can't be moved or lifted. Our residence at 213 Waterman Court was built in 2017 with a positioning within the building envelope and at a base height that was consistent with the drainage easement. Our residence was not built for what we believe is increased flood risk. And we're well aware of the easement when we built our house. It is the smallest within the St. James Village.
I'm going to give him 15 more seconds.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Our residence is the smallest in St. James Village. Residents that build based on CC&Rs of St. James Village and expect others to do likewise should not be harmed years later. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no further public comment in chambers for item 8A. No further public comment in chambers.
I do have one hand raised on Zoom. D. Forret, please unmute and state your first and last name for the record.
Hello, my name is Dirk Forret, DIRK FORRETTE. And we also own into that easement pond, our address 204 Paddington Court. And we feel that it would be a bad idea. We oppose this as well because we've been here almost 8 years and have seen that pond not filled, but several feet of water in it during the wet years. Last year, of course, and 2017 comes to mind. So I feel like messing with engineering studies and construction that has already happened in here, especially by a hydrographer that showed up in July with a tape measure, is really not a good idea. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
I have no further hands raised on Zoom and no further comment in chambers.
Okay, with that, we'll close up the public comment. We'll bring it back to the board for discussion or questions. Anybody have any questions or discussion?
Chair Pierce, I have
Go
a
ahead.
question for staff.
I
have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Linda.
He mentioned, one of the comments mentioned whether this was in the scope of the planning commission because it was private land. Could someone explain that to me?
All right, Tim Evans, planner. So in relation to that, it is private land or whatnot, but abandonments do happen like this, and the reason that this one is coming before the Planning Commission today is because it's the abandonment of Washoe County's interest in that easement there.
Was that satisfactory, Linda?
I still don't understand.
Okay.
But does that mean that they will be able to build there? Or does that just mean we don't have any control over it anymore?
Yeah, so it would be the abandonment of Washoe County's interest, so they would be able to build there. If there's anything additional beyond what is required by the county, say for instance, the HOA may have something or something like that. I don't know if that's the case. It's just an example that they have to do, then they would have to do that outside anything that Washoe County has. But this is the abandonment of Washoe County's interest in that easement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
It was similar to.
Oh, you had a similar question? Okay.
Mr. Dawson, I have a question where it was mentioned something about some kind of a new memo with the city of Reno, and I'm confused with that. I don't think that affects us. I just want to confirm. Okay.
Yeah, so I can probably speak to that a little bit. So I do recall seeing that in the public, or the email that I received from the public commenter. That doesn't have any applicability to this. That's specifically for the city of Reno.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yes, maybe if I can direct this to council. I was always under the impression if you have an interest in an easement, you have certain ownership rights to that. Is that correct, or is that a Nevada law thing?
Jen Gustafson for the record. I'm not sure that I can answer that question. An easement doesn't necessarily evidence ownership rights. There's a lot of easements that have to do with use. It doesn't necessarily reflect ownership, though.
So you feel comfortable with the way this is presented, that staff has presented?
I'm not sure that I can answer that question either. What specifically are you asking?
Well, I mean, there is brought up by a gentleman that he's questioning our ability to abandon the easement because we don't own it.
Right, so the Planning Commission, what you have the power to do is abandon Washoe County's interest in an easement, right? So that's the only power, that's the only thing that's happening here. And if you look at like the conditions of approval, the first page of the conditions of approval always go into that too. So the only thing that Washoe, what the Planning Commission doing is abandoning whatever interest, if any, Washoe County may have in an easement.
So it's almost like a quitclaim deed.
It's exactly like a quitclaim deed where Washoe County is abandoning its interest in this easement.
If it has it.
If it has any, yes.
I'll just tag along to that. Many of the easements most of the easements that the Planning Commission reviews are private, or for abandonment are private access easements. So drainage easements are relatively rare for this board to review. I do notice that Washoe County was the one that did approve with the approval of the tentative map this easement itself. It is unclear regarding ownership of the easement. It does say private, but the applicants are the owners of the property. So again, all that we're looking at is Washoe County's interest in this easement and abandoning that Washoe County's interest.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions or discussion? Okay, I'll open it up for a motion if you're ready. Go ahead.
Commissioner Pierce? I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve the abandonment case number WAB 23-0003 for Stephen Parker with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all three findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.806.20.
All right, do I have a second?
Commissioner Lazareski, I second.
All right, I have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Opposed.
You oppose, Linda?
Yes.
Okay, so Linda says no, everybody else says yes. Thank you. That moves us on to,
Mr. Chair, if I could,
yes.
just go
Would you
ahead
like to
and read the appeal
appeal?
procedure again.
Okay, go ahead.
Most decisions rendered by the Planning Commission are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission and you qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Planning Commission, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you. All right, that brings us on to 8B, which is the Development Code Amendment, WDCA 23-0001 for Wood Creek Regulatory Zone. Mr. Lloyd, could you please announce it?
Yeah, for hearing, discussion, and possible action to initiate an amendment and approve a resolution to amend Washoe County Code Chapter 110 within Article 220, Section 110-220-275, the Wood Creek Regulatory Zone, to add schools, kindergarten through secondary, use type as a permitted use, subject to a special use permit on those parcels in size equal to or greater than 3 acres within the Tahoe Wood Creek Regulatory Zone, and all matters necessarily connected with therewith and pertaining thereto. The Planning Commission may recommend approval of the proposed ordinance as submitted, recommend approval with modifications based on input and discussion at the public hearing, or recommend denial. If approval is recommended, the Planning Commission is asked to authorize the chair to sign a resolution to that effect. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Senior Planner Courtney Weike.
All right, Courtney, floor is yours. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Courtney Weike, Senior Planner for the record. As Mr. Lloyd just stated, the case before you is WDCA 23-001.
Yes. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Related to this item?
I apologize. Go ahead. Yes,
Sorry,
We do.
Commissioner Nelson, for the record, I do have a disclosure to make. I am the interim director of Public Works for the Incline Village General Improvement District. I have had no conversations on this project. I believe that our compliance department, which is within Public Works, may have had some discussion on this. However, I have not been directly involved on any of this. So I believe that I can make a fair and impartial decision on what's in front of us this evening.
You okay with her continuing?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry. I even wrote it down. I forgot.
Okay, thank you. Again, Courtney Whitekey, Senior Planner for the record. So to reiterate, the request is for a development code amendment, which would amend Washoe County Code Chapter 110 within Article 220 of the Tahoe area, Section 110.220.275, to add schools, kindergarten through secondary, use type as a permitted use, subject to a special use permit on those parcels in size equal to or greater than 3 acres within the Tahoe Wood Creek Regulatory Zone. The Wood Creek Regulatory Zone is shown in green above and is generally located west of Mount Rose Highway, south of College Drive, east of Village Boulevard, and north of Tahoe Boulevard. The Wood Creek Regulatory Zone is one of 16 residential regulatory zones within the Tahoe Area Plan. These regulatory zones focus primarily on single-family dwellings, but allow for other use types such as multifamily and a broad scope of public service and resource management uses. The primary vision for residential regulatory zones is to, quote, maintain safe and functional residentially focused regulatory zones with development that contributes to the desired community character. The Wood Creek Regulatory Zone also includes a designated special area on 2 parcels established to allow public service uses on publicly owned parcels. And that zone is shown in red with the red dots. The parcels highlighted above in yellow represent those parcels within the regulatory zone that are greater in size than 3 acres, of which the proposed additional use would be allowed subject to a special use permit. There are only 3 privately owned parcels that are owned by St. Francis and the Village Church. Looks like there's a lag there. A little bit of history on the application. So in June of this year, the applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting. Notice was sent to 198 properties. There were 20 people in attendance. Public concerns raised included traffic, noise, parking, environmental impacts, fire safety, and possible potential negative impacts to public schools. A summary of the neighborhood meeting and responses to public input were included by the applicant as Exhibit D, Appendix 3. June 8th of 2023, the subject DCA application was submitted. In September 27th, 2023, a Regional Plan Implementation Committee informational meeting was held. This is a subcommittee of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency's governing board, and this is intended to provide the governing board members an opportunity to hear from the public and provide staff any sort of input on the request. TRPA did receive nearly 100 written public comments. Approximately 36 were in opposition and 55 expressed support for the amendment. There was no public verbal testimony given at this meeting, and all the RPIC members expressed support for the proposal with no notable concerns raised. Summary, the RPIC staff report and public comment were all included as Exhibit C, Appendix 3 to your staff report. There are 27 regulatory zones within the Tahoe area plan. Apologize. The requested school use type is only permitted outright in the Incline Village Commercial Regulatory Zone and are permitted with a special use permit in the Incline Village Residential and Fairway Regulatory Zone. A little bit of background into the request. St. Clair's was founded in 2018 and is the only Catholic school offered in the North Tahoe area. In 2022, St. Clair's was informed their existing lease, located in Tahoe Vista, would not be renewed for the 2022-2023 school year, and therefore was in search of a new location. Since 2022, they have been operating out of St. Francis at 701 Mount Rose Highway under a temporary use permit, which was issued by the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. The second applicant is Village Church, which is also located within the Wood Creek Regulatory Zone north of St. Francis, and they too wish to operate an elementary school in addition to the existing preschool. The Village Church representatives met with Washoe County staff to begin the process to establish a proposed school use type and were informed at that time that the use type was not currently allowed. However, staff informed them that St. Clair's was already pursuing a code amendment for the same purpose, and Village Church in St. Clair's therefore agreed to collaborate and submitted a combined application on the requested amendment. So as stated, this would be the actual text change within the development code, shown in red, adding schools, kindergarten through secondary, with the asterisk that it would only be on those parcels in size equal to or greater than 3 acres, and it's shown that the land use permit required would be a special use permit. Staff has received close to 200 public comments since application submittal. This includes both to the TRPA and to the county, including those Regional Plan Implementation Committee comments. There's been a mix of support and opposition of the request. As stated, public concerns predominantly surrounded around traffic, noise, parking, environmental impacts, and possible negative impacts to public schools. Support for the request generally cites favoring a variety of school choices in the community. While not required by the county, the applicant has provided a draft initial environmental checklist, otherwise known as an IEC. This is a Tahoe Regional Planning Agency requirement. The IEC evaluates the potential environmental effects associated with adoption and implementation of the proposed development code amendment and is proposing a finding of no significant impact. This was included as in an appendix to Exhibit C, the DCA application. The application was sent to applicable agencies and county departments. No agency or county departments expressed concerns or opposition of the request. Anne Marie Lane of Dow Consulting, representing the applicant, will summarize their responses to each of the possible impacts identified in the IEC. The Planning Commission staff report provided a detailed discussion and analysis of all the required DCA findings. For the sake of time, I will not go through each finding and will rather respond to any questions on specific findings as necessary. Staff is recommending that the Washoe County Planning Commission consider a recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners for the requested amendment. And with that, I have provided a possible motion for your consideration and am available for any questions.
Thank you. Are the applicants present? Would they like to make a presentation?
Good evening, Commissioners.
Please state your first and last name.
Yes. Can we cue my presentation? Great, thank you. My name is Anne Marie Lane, and I am representing St. Clair's and Village Church on this development code amendment request. Also representing the applicants today from Dow is Senior Civil Engineer Silas Callahan. I would also like to introduce the applicants themselves. Applicants, if you could please stand when your name is read. With me today from Village Church, I have Head of Education, Mr. Tim Gilbert, and Ecclesiastic Leader, Elder Don Farrell. Representing St. Clair's is Executive Board Member Alex Roothouse. Thank you, applicants. The purpose of my presentation today is to introduce the amendment request, provide the background on why it is being brought before you, and answer any questions that the commission may have. Brief background about St. Clair's. St. Clair's is a small nonprofit pre-K through 8th Catholic school that has been serving the North Tahoe area for about 5.5 years. The school was founded and run by parishioners of St. Francis Catholic Church in Incline Village, where they are currently operating under a temporary use permit as they pursue this amendment, which, if approved, would allow them to operate for the foreseeable future with an approved special use permit. St. Clair's is the only Catholic school in the Tahoe area. The closest options for Catholic education outside of St. Clair's are in Reno and Carson City. St. Clair's currently serves a total of 22 families with 45 students. 25% of their students receive full financial aid scholarships to enable families with financial hardships to attend. Also in Incline is Village Church, which has been operating a Christian daycare / preschool for the last 20 years with an approved special use permit. Village Church is also responding to the needs in their community to offer faith-based education and are pursuing the Development Code Amendment, which, if approved, would allow them to operate a faith-based elementary school out of the existing church building with an approved special use permit. This application has been submitted on behalf of Village Church and St. Clair's, both of which are located within the Washoe County Tahoe Area Plan and the Residential Regulatory Zone of Wood Creek. In the Wood Creek Regulatory Zone, daycare centers and preschools aren't allowed use with a special use permit. However, schools are not permitted. As such, this request has been made for the amendment to add schools, kindergarten through secondary, as a permitted use subject to a special use permit on those parcels in size equal to or greater than 3 acres within the Tahoe Wood Creek Regulatory Zone. So why now? Since March 2020, public and private education has been in a space never experienced before in educational history. The devastating pandemic, however, generated increased interest in innovation, both as a concept and a strategy to rethink what a school is, what it looks like, and how it operates. Both of my clients are responding to the need for faith-based education in their communities, and I've been hired to help them navigate the regulatory process to meet these requests. As a mother who quit my job during the pandemic to attend to the educational and social-emotional needs of my first grader who was isolated at home, I truly believe that an increase in educational options will help build more resilient communities. When St. Clair's first approached me with what they were trying to accomplish, we had no idea that the existing church up the road was trying to accomplish the same thing. However, this was not a complete surprise to me, given the limited locations within the Tahoe Area Plan that allow for school use and the current trends in private school enrollment. Taking a look at State of Nevada 10-year comparisons for private school enrollment, you can see that until 2021, private school enrollment across the state averaged around 20,000 students. In 2021 to 2022 school year, we saw a drastic increase of approximately 1,466 students enrolled in private schools across the state, which was a 7.6 increase in private school enrollment compared to the previous year. That growth repeated at approximately the same rate for the 2022-2023 school year, which added another 1,506 students enrolled in private school, which was a 7.2 increase in private school enrollment. Which brings us to the issue at hand, other than I might have turned off the presentation. Nope, there it is. The issue at hand, which is an increased interest in private school enrollment and the limited regulatory zones in the Tahoe Area Plan that allow for school use. The Tahoe Area Plan is the code-adopted authority that determines what uses are allowed and where. It is implemented and regulated by both Washoe County and the Truckee Regional Planning Authority. As stated earlier, Village, Church, and St. Clair's are located within the residential regulatory zone of Wood Creek. There are 27 regulatory zones within the Tahoe Area Plan, and the Wood Creek regulatory zone focuses primarily on single-family dwellings, and as the plan states, is intended to provide a broad scope of public service to serve the residential communities. Of the 27 regulatory zones, there's only one zone that allows schools as a permitted use outright. The areas outlined in the graphic show the areas within the Incline Village Commercial District that allow schools as a permitted use without a special use permit. The two dot indicators are the location of St. Clair's and Village Church. The areas in yellow highlight the Incline Village Residential Regulatory Zone, which allow for school use with an approved special use permit. So functionally, school use is permitted in only 2 of the 27 regulatory zones in the Tahoe Area Plan. As such, the applicants have proposed that this amendment allows schools as a permitted use within the Wood Creek Regulatory Zone, subject to a special use permit on parcels equal to or greater than 3 acres in size. The applicants have proposed the acreage restrictions to preserve the existing neighborhood character throughout the internal corridor of the Wood Creek Regulatory Zone. The code amendment would only apply to the highlighted parcels owned by Village Church, St. Francis, Washoe County, State of Nevada, and Incline Village General Improvement District. The impacted parcels all have frontage along major corridors in the area and are sufficient in size to accommodate the proposed allowed use. The applicant sent out a neighborhood meeting notice to property owners within 700 feet of the proposed amendment location in May and held a neighborhood meeting to discuss the proposed amendment in June. Most of the concerns voiced at the meeting were around traffic, noise, and parking, which I will address shortly. After formal application to Washoe County, the TRPA Regional Plan Implementation Committee held a duly noticed public meeting on the requested amendment for informational purposes only. It should be noted that all Regional Plan Implementation Committee members expressed support for the proposal with no notable concerns raised. My next few slides are to address some of the concerns voiced at the neighborhood meeting. First off is traffic. The applicant has submitted a 51-page initial environmental checklist, which is a report required by TRPA for Regional Plan Conformance Review. The submitted IEC evaluates the potential environmental effects associated with the adoption and implementation of the proposed amendment and includes a chapter on both noise and traffic circulation. In addition to the IEC report, Dow Traffic Engineers prepared a trip generation review for the Wood Creek Regulatory Zone to compare expected trip generation of a K through 8 school with existing trip generation of a daycare center / preschool. As found in the trip generation review, private school K through 8 educational facilities operate very similar to daycare centers on a daily basis. The trip generation review concluded that adding the school land use to the list of acceptable special use permit land uses would be consistent with currently allowed uses. The proposed amendment does not include any provisions or changes that would alter the special use permit process to evaluate traffic at a project level to ensure transportation, parking, and traffic generation are consistent with applicable limitations and regulations. Future projects implemented under the proposed amendment would require a traffic and parking plan to ensure all applicable regional and local requirements are met. It should also be noted that conditions of approval for a special use permit frequently and can include restrictions on student capacity and hours of operation. Next up is noise. The proposed amendment would not alter any requirements related to noise level, nor would it alter the community noise equivalency level standards set forth in the existing area plan. The amendment could result in the establishment of primary and secondary school uses. However, a special use permit would be required. The special use permit process requires additional review to consider potential proposed uses to create increases in noise. Should this amendment request be approved, it is anticipated that an acoustical noise study would be a required submittal as part of the special use permit application. Onto parking. The parking standards in the Tahoe Area Plan are established in the Washoe County Development Code. And again, the proposed amendment would not alter the parking standards adopted in the Tahoe Area Plan, and a special use permit would be evaluated at a site-specific level for conformance to regulatory parking requirements. In summary, the amendment request is compatible with the Tahoe Area Plan, which encourages sustainable development into areas with existing development and infrastructure. The use of the already existing church facilities that remain mostly unutilized during the day supports the goals and policies of the Tahoe Area Plan. The proposed amendment is intended to facilitate the establishment of faith-based schools that are not otherwise provided for within the jurisdiction. The proposed amendment promotes the purpose of the development code by supporting the general welfare of the community, lessens traffic congestion by providing a mechanism to allow faith-based education to establish within the communities they serve, facilitates the adequate provision of schools, and promotes the social advantages gained from an appropriately regulated use of land. It is clear from the description of the regulatory zoning district that school use is entirely consistent with the purpose of the regulatory zone, and that no previous justification exists for prohibiting school use within the regulatory zone. As evidenced throughout this presentation and associated application documents, the applicant's development code amendment requests is consistent with the long-range policies and regulations governing the allowance of these requests. It is for these reasons outlined within the submittal package and this presentation that the applicant respectfully requests the Washoe County Planning Commission approve the development code amendment request. Should the commission approve this request, this slide outlines the anticipated meeting dates for the remainder of the amendment approval process, which does require both Washoe County Board of County Commission and TRPA governing board approval. Please note that these dates are subject to change as they are scheduled by the corresponding regulatory agencies. At this time, I would like to sincerely thank the Washoe County planning staff, especially Ms. Courtney Waike, for her assistance throughout the application process. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the Washoe County Planning Commission for your time this evening, and to both St. Clair's and Village Church for entrusting Dal to provide our professional services throughout this process. Should the commission have any follow-up questions about the request, I or project engineer, Mr. Callaway, are happy to provide a response. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any more presentations? That's it? Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up public comment, but I would humbly like to request that if we have a lot of public comment, if somebody said something that you want to say before you, please do not repeat that if you can, please. At this time, let's open up public comment.
And if anyone in chambers would like to make public comment and you haven't already filled out a request to speak form, please come do so now. First in chambers, I have Kimberly Comstock, followed by Scott Comstock.
Good evening. My name is Sean Comstock. Never been here before. I'm
sorry, ma'am, can you speak into the microphone?
Yes, I am a neighbor that lives right behind the Catholic Church. I've been there for 30 years. If you can see my map, the map they gave you is it doesn't even explain what is going on at Mount Rose Highway. At the Catholic Church, if you could see very clearly, this is a very narrow road to turn out versus McCurry is wide. The infrastructure for increased people in and out is horrendous. They are turning in and out on a fire evacuation main corridor. And you all know what has happened in Maui and Paradise. If we were in an emergency situation to get out of our neighborhoods, to get onto that route and head out. But I wanted to start with just telling you how great our incline schools are. And our public schools, and there is a private school. And I know that our churches also teach, the kids will go to school and then they'll go to their churches and they will get their faith-based education after school or on Sunday schools. So there's no need for 100 students at Village Church, and there's no need for 100 students with portable classrooms, are the intentions on the lower parking lot of Kelly Drive, which you can see how narrow Kelly Drive is in our neighborhood. The Catholic Church has been a good neighbor to me for 30 years. They have allowed a tenant to come in for 2 years, almost 2 years on 6-month temporary permit situation. There has been noise, there has been traffic, there has been no consideration of the neighbors. They put a playground in the back parking lot, which I'm sure isn't even up to code. When the Catholic Church did its remodel, no complaints. And in that remodel, it stated, expansion will not result in intensification of use. Well, we've always believed our church next to us. We don't believe them anymore because they are intensifying the use of what their remodel was about. I really want you to look at your digital report because I don't have a lot of time yet. I want you to look at pages 270 through 275, Mr. Bennett's letter with photographs of all the parking on Mount Rose Highway. This is Mount Rose Highway. Deaths at the truck ramp. We have semis, 18-wheelers. That Mr. Holton, Eric Holton died. Frank Matthews died. This July, we had another runaway truck.
Thank you for your time. It's appreciated.
Next, I have Scott Comstock, followed by Will Phillips.
Good evening. My name is Scott Comstock. I live at 731 Betty Lane, adjacent to the church property. I would like to speak about the neighborhood meeting. It's where it all began. There was a notice sent out. The neighbors showed up in very small attendance, and many people from the church and involved with the schools showed up. Dow, the company representing the redevelopment, did a slide presentation, and then at the end of the presentation, there was overwhelming majority of questions from the neighbors that stressed disapproval. The meeting ended. They had another event planned, rushed us out of the chapel, handed us comment cards, and we didn't know what they were for. The Dow representative said the meeting would be recorded, and I think it would be important to review that recording. The comment cards, there were 19 people on the sign-up sheet. I guess I can put this down for you. Of the 19 people on the sign-up sheet, there were 15 total comment cards. 3, and only 3, were on the sign-up sheet. 12 of the comment cards were from teachers, students, parents, employees, not neighbors. I think the purpose of the neighborhood meeting was to get feedback from the neighbors. Since the neighborhood was poorly misrepresented in the comment cards, we circulated a petition in the neighborhood, which you also have. It has 50 signatures on it. It's very simple and short. I hope you will review it. The data on the comment cards does not reflect the opinions of the neighborhood. The vast majority of the opinions on the comment card were employees, teachers, students, parishioners of the two churches. We'd like to see you delay or stop the approval step and redo step 1, which is the neighborhood meeting, which must be done even before the process begins. The data is flawed, and if it was realistic, this rezoning might not have gotten this far. It's hard not to agree with school choice or faith-based education, but to change the dynamics of a whole residential neighborhood when there are many locations in town that are zoned correctly for the schools, is just plain wrong.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yep. Thank you.
Next, I have Will Phillips, followed by Charles Koritz.
My name is Will Phillips, and I support allowing these churches to provide a primary faith-based education for the children of our community. Now, there are some complicated issues in the world today. Luckily, this issue is not one of them. This is simple. Our children deserve an opportunity to have a faith-based education. There's no safety issue with Mount Rose Highway, and the costs associated with relocating to the middle of town would be cost prohibitive. Many of the families depend on scholarships as it is. Now, it's understandable. Some of our neighbors are afraid of change, but the change is really minimal when you consider there's already been preschools in this neighborhood for 40 years. And please don't blame the Bears. The Bears are not against this issue. We need to be respectful of the Bears regardless of where the schools are. And a lot of effort has been spent in the Tahoe Basin on solving the affordable housing issue. And as important as that issue is, it takes more than just housing to sustain a community. We also need a place to educate our children. And for those of us who need a faith-based education, public schools are not an option. Without these small schools in Incline Village, we will not have the ability to choose a faith-based education for our children. In the military across the world, I've seen death and destruction on a scale that is hard to believe and impossible to understand. I served in humanitarian missions in Africa, in Haiti after the earthquake, and in Iraq and Afghanistan. Following in the footsteps of my father and grandfather who served their generation's wars, my family believes in a life of service to others, to our community, and to our country. My lungs were damaged in the toxic burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it will likely shorten my life, meaning less time for me to spend with my family. And when I'm asked if I regret serving, I always say the same thing. I am honored to have had the opportunity to serve my country and my community. Several other parents of these schools have also served in uniform, and thank you for your service. When my children ask me in our country's next war if they should risk their lives to serve their country, their community, I want to be able to tell them yes. Yes, you should serve others, and those who you serve will honor your sacrifice and provide you with the most basic community services, including the ability to choose a faith-based education for your families. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, I have Charles Koritz, followed by Michael Skehan.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Charles Koritz. I just wanted to make a quick comment about the importance of having faith-based education in our community. We moved here, me and my wife and my child, from Texas, and we moved to Incline, and we fell in love with the area immediately. Unfortunately, there's very few opportunities for our children to go to school, and we were told that wait times are generally around 18 to 24 months. And so, unfortunately, we had to relocate our family out of Incline in order to allow us to get our children into school. And that's just, it's sad because we love Incline and we love the area, but we just aren't able to live there anymore. And we, and on top of that, we also take, our money out of the community, and now we're putting it into other neighborhoods that could have gone back into Incline, into local businesses, and into schools. So really, that's kind of just all I wanted to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Skehan, followed by Alex Roodhouse.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Michael Skihan. My children attend St. Clair's School and have for the past few years. I'm a resident of the Wood Creek Regulatory Zone. I'm on the Pastoral Council at St. Francis, and I'm on the board for St. Clair's School. I also believe that a faith-based school choice is important, but I won't belabor that point. I'll address a couple of other things. First, around the intensification of the church usage. When I think of the word intensification, I think that largely it means an increase of, again, some sort of baseline. The school does not intensify the usage of the church property when considered against the standard usage of the church property. The church has multiple services weekly where hundreds and hundreds of people gather, where they park, where there is traffic. And on any given school day, the church property is not in usage during the daylight hours. And you're talking about 20 families, 40 kids. It's actually a significant reduction in usage versus the standard usage of the church facilities throughout the course of the weekend, a fraction of the number of cars, the number of people. So as far as safety concerns, traffic concerns, it's marginal usage, and it's just at hours that folks aren't accustomed to. As it relates to the traffic corridors and the dangers of Mount Rose Highway, the school access plan, the traffic plan, and I'm sure it's all outlined in the report that you have in front of you. The school's not, the children, they're not anywhere close to Mount Rose Highway they're inside the church building, which is hundreds of feet off of Mount Rose Highway. And for recess, for when they're outdoors, they're on the opposite end. They're across Kelly Drive, which is a block and a half away from Mount Rose Highway. So as far as traffic concerns, safety concerns, fire concerns, I'm sure, again, it's all outlined in more detail and in better language than I could possibly do service to. But since it was brought up in public comment, I felt like it would be worth addressing. I appreciate your time, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Next, we have Alex Roothouse, followed by Luke Darren.
Good evening. My name is Alex Roothouse. Thank you for your time this evening. I also, well, to clarify, I am the applicant, so I'm on the board of St. Clair's. So I am also a parent. I'm also a resident of Incline Village, not in the Wood Creek Zone, but I represent the applicant myself. I'm St. Clair's. So I don't want to belabor some of the points that have already been made around the right to raise our children in our faith and to do so in a church. I think that is, to some degree, common sense, and I think a lot of people in this country just understand that, right? It's a pretty fundamental right. What I do want to say is there has been no intent to create division within the neighborhood, within our community. We have tried very hard and very diligently to follow all the processes of this regulatory process. The informational meetings, the public hearings, the public comment periods, and even beyond that, we've had representatives of the church try to go sit down with neighbors at their kitchen table just to understand, hey, what's really the issue here? Because at stake, I mean, you have the report, you have the maps. This all makes sense, right? It is a good for the community. And the concerns of the neighbors are very legitimate concerns that should be addressed, right? And that we as the school and as the church do want to address, and in concert with them. Certainly, conditions on a permit help to address that, help to control the traffic flow and the noise and how we behave. But we still seek to build consensus with the neighborhood, and even if this process, continues and is approved, we don't view that as, oh, well, hey, the neighbors' concerns therefore don't matter. They do matter, and we want to continue to address that with them. So this development code amendment, as it goes through, in my opinion, gives us even greater flexibility to do that. As we hear specific concerns, hey, I don't like the playgrounds in this place. Great. This amendment should give us greater flexibility to use the parcels more than they are right now, where the playground's tucked in, and maybe we can move it away from the homes where they're hearing all that noise, and a simple shift in location of the playground could remove some of the noise that's troublesome to them on a daily basis. So I just want to emphasize, the report has all the reasons why this makes sense and why this doesn't change the character of Wood Creek as a regulatory zone. If you ever have the time to drive through on Mount Rose Highway, and you'll see both churches, they're right on the highway, right? They're not buried in the middle of the residential zone. They're on the borders of it, and all the access comes off the highway into the churches and then back out. So there really isn't through traffic going through the neighborhood, so there's no real impact. But we respect the neighbors. We want to build a bridge. We don't want to cause division. This is something that we're trying to do for the good of the community, not just for the good of a few. So I thank you for your time in looking at this, and for the neighbors, we'll continue to reach out and try to dialogue. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Luke Darren, followed by Aaron Harding.
Thank you very much for your time. I'll make this very short. I am for this application.
Can you please state your name?
Sorry, my name is Luke Darren. I am for this application. I have 2 children at this school, age 8 and 6. Previous to that, we were homeschooling as a family, and we feel that we need a faith-based school for our education to give our children the best start in life, not a 1-hour session at a church on a Sunday morning. The one other comment I want to mention, that there is an alternative route, the concerns of Mount Rose Highway, but the other alternative route is through Kelly Drive. So I understand there is concerns on that, but there is actually alternative roads. I am for this application, and that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Lastly, in chambers, I have Aaron Harding.
Good evening, Aaron Harding. Thank you, Commissioners. Many of my comments were already covered in the audience here, so I will not repeat them. Just one more homeowner, resident, and parent agree with faith-based education, and the alternatives to seek a faith-based education are not in the local area, subject to more traffic violations or traffic concerns and safety concerns to get to those other schools. So thank you for the time.
Thank you.
And lastly, in chambers, I have Donna Fulkerson.
Good evening. I have a house on Kelly
Can you
Drive.
please state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Donna Fulkerson.
Thank you.
I have a house on Kelly Drive, and the comment saying that it is not going to increase traffic. The traffic on Kelly Drive during the weekends is increased considerably. Anybody that lives up there knows that when the roads are plowed in the winter, it's a narrow road. It's a narrow road to start with. It becomes even more narrow with the snow. You can't have kids walking up and down that road. As for alternate routes, there is no alternate route. You're either going to come down Kelly or you're going to come up and down the freeway there, or somebody's going to pick you up and drive you off. But if you're walking, there is not an alternate route. There's going to be a lot of kids walking up and down that street. And with the snow on the street, especially the year we had last year, anybody walking on that road, it is dangerous. They should not, plus, I don't want to get started on the noise. It's going to be very noisy. It's going to reduce the value of my home by having that school there. There's got to be another location. Just because they've got a lot of space that they want to do something with doesn't mean we have to have a school there. I just think it's unsafe for the children, and another location should be found. Thank you.
Thank you.
In chambers, I have Don Farrell, followed by Tim Gilbert.
Good evening. My name's Don Farrell. I'm an elder at the Village Church. I've been a resident of Incline Village for about 12 years and an elder about 6 or 7. I thought I'd speak on behalf of the church. You hadn't heard much from us in this process. And the one thing is that we've had a preschool there for in its current form for over 25 years. It extends back before that. Some of the alumni of our preschool are now parents with kids in our school, and it's a cool thing. We do this as a community service. It's most of the parents who put kids in our preschool don't go to our church. It's not a matter of church membership. It's a matter of helping the kids in the community. We expect to do the same thing with the grade school. We now have 30 kids in the preschool, and we're hoping to grow to 50 and 50, kind of 100 total. The preschool has a giant wait list. Right now it's over 80 kids. There's a real shortage of both preschool and grade school facilities in our community for parents who want a choice. And we got acquainted with the needs parents have. You've heard some of them tonight. I won't repeat them. For faith-based education. But there are also parents who just want a private education that's alternative to the public schools for reasons of their own, flexibility, for example. The only school that does that in Incline is the Tahoe School, which has also got a long wait list. So I think we're going to be providing a service that the community needs. As it was mentioned earlier, our building and parking lot serves more people on a Sunday than will ever be present during the school day. Certainly the parking will be way below what it is during a Sunday service. We have very few neighbors, and we've developed positive relationships with each of them, kind of the way Alex talked about by working at it over the years. It's not that there haven't been issues, but we've managed to resolve them all. But we don't have many neighbors. There's only like 3 or 4 neighbors that are contiguous to our property. And finally, our congregation strongly supports this. We have put our heart into a quality preschool. I think you should go talk to the local regulator of preschools. They love our preschool, and we have the same commitment to provide the same high quality in the grade school.
Thank you.
Lastly, we have Tim Gilbert.
Thank you all. Tim Gilbert, applicant. All the points have been hit and hit very well already. I just want to say passionately that Don referred to the rest of our congregation. We passionately want to teach our kids and grandkids about Jesus Christ, and that is what this comes down to for us. This was a good idea for us 40 years ago. Now we're able to implement it, and while current events may dictate that it's a good idea to some, we wanted to do this for a long time, and now we're able to do it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have no further public comment in chambers.
I do have hands raised on Zoom. The first is a call-in with the last 4 digits of their phone number of 0824. Please unmute and state your first and last name for the record. Caller of 0824.
This is Yolanda Canuck. I am a resident here in Incline Village. First of all, I want you to know that I'm in favor of the special use permits for these 2 schools. First of all, if you know anything about Nevada, the public school education is 50th out of 50. That means like we're dead last in the United States. It is very bad. Also, the problem is the majority on the Washoe County School Board keeps pushing our schools to the left. They don't have a problem with critical race theory. They don't have a problem with pushing children into changing genders and other bad things. I, for 6 years, was living on Lucille Drive. I actually moved last year, but that is the street that runs behind the village church, and I found no problems with traffic or anything like that. And also, there were multiple other routes that you could avoid the school. You could always just go up Lucille Drive to College, and then you hit Mount Rose, and you can go up the mountain, which is probably the best way for evacuation, although they won't really tell you that because they say, oh, well, we have to wait to find out where the fire is before we're going to tell anyone. But and then even with the Catholic Church, The people on Kelly could go backtrack to Winding Way, go up to, they can jot over and go up Lucille Drive, hit College, and also go to Mount Rose that way. The other thing is going down Winding Way, you can get on State Route 28 very easily. And as far as when I lived near the Village Church, I really had no problem. So please vote yes on the special use permit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have Annabelle Cordoba Sosa. Please unmute and state your first and last name for the record. Looks like Annabelle.
So
okay, go ahead.
My name is not Annabelle. My name is Paige Roodhouse, and I am the executive director of St. Clair's School. I want to just emphasize that the co-location of a Catholic school with a Catholic church has a huge precedent in our county already. So if you look in Reno, all 4 of the Catholic schools that serve the community there are co-located with their Catholic church. This is pretty standard across the country. And the reason is because as Catholics, we need access to the sacraments of Holy Communion and confession. We need the opportunity to participate in adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, where we believe that Jesus is present. And these are essential components of Catholic education that take place only within our Catholic Church. As a tiny Catholic school serving just 22 families and 45 students, we bring a lot to the community. We're also a licensed childcare provider, and we do have a wait list for our preschool program as well, as this is a critical infrastructure component for working parents in our community, and it's open to all parents, not just Catholics. Our Montessori school also enriches our community by providing access to a world-renowned education model that's based on self-paced and differentiated learning, which is really important, especially for students with learning differences. As we said before, we do offer aggressive financial aid to the families who wouldn't otherwise be able to attend. So this really is a community service that we're providing. As a nonprofit, it's difficult to stay alive, as many of you who have been in this business know. There are always bills, there are always hurdles and obstacles, and we'd love it if our partners in our planning could start to open some doors for us just to be able to exist. If you look at being co-located with St. Francis and for the Village Church with their church, these are already community use buildings. They may not be zoned that way right now, but that's what they're effectively doing, is serving our communities, ushering in hundreds of people. And you're right, there are cars backed up on Mount Rose Highway, and some of the pictures have shown, and those are during our weekend masses where we bring in those hundreds of people. What we're doing instead is just optimizing the use of this building during the school day to provide a school choice for our families. So I really appreciate your time this evening. And I also want to echo that invitation to our neighbors. We really do not want to be a source of increased animosity. There's enough of that in our world right now. We are going to continue to reach out to you with good intentions, and we hope that we can be a bridge towards peaceful communication and towards compromise to make sure that we attend to your needs as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have Laurel. Laurel, please unmute and give us your first and last name for the record.
Hello, my name is Laurel Jones, and I live in the Wood Creek neighborhood. I just wanted to say that I did get the notification about the meeting for the community, but I was under the assumption that it was under a temporary use permit that they were looking for, and I have no problem with the temporary use for the St. Clair's. I do have a problem with having this amendment. That's a much bigger issue, and I didn't realize that was part of the meeting. I wanted to point out that a preschool and a K-8 school is substantially different. Certainly I've had no problems with a preschool that's been at the Village Church. My children even attended that before it was the Village Church preschool. But I also wanted to point out that I don't know whether the traffic studies are looking at the winter conditions. Last year in 2017, Winding Way, which is mentioned previously, by somebody who was talking is an alternate route when you're trying to avoid Mount Rose Highway, which I'm going to assume a lot of the parents will end up doing. It's a very dangerous road. The left turns off of it are very dangerous. Winding Way, which is the main alternate to get to Kelly Drive, during the winter is one lane. I mean, you have to pull over so that the car can pass you. It's not two lanes. There's no yellow markers on Kelly or Winding Way. These are very residential, small town roads, and it's difficult to be able to get around. And having extra traffic, especially when we're worried about emergencies, is a big concern. And I'm also wondering whether there is an emergency plan. Where will the parents meet each other? Where will the children meet each other if there is a fire or an earthquake or something's happening? I'm guessing it will be on Winding Way or off of Kelly because you need an alternate route. And while Mount Rose is a highway with a divided road, the other roads around it are not. I think that's pretty much. Oh, I also want to know they're talking about having a possible enrollment cap and traffic studies. I would think that those would be done first before looking at an amendment. And it seems like those are coming after the amendment. I don't really quite understand that. I would recommend another neighborhood meeting where it's a little more clear that what's being requested is an amendment, not a temporary use. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have Sarah Hillman. Sarah, please unmute and state your first and last name for the record.
Hi there. I'm Sarah Hillman. I'm a parent of two students in Incline Village in the public school system. And I have no problem with education and a Catholic education and things like that. My main concern is that we're a small community with a small student population for our already existing 3 public schools and a large PK through 8 private school. And recently, Washoe County School District approached the community to let us know that they're planning on consolidating our schools down to 2 public schools due to the dwindling student populations. The impact on the students is concerning. It's challenging to combine middle schoolers and elementary schoolers or middle schoolers and high school students with the existing infrastructures we have. And also, it just can be challenging in general with those age ranges. My concern is that adding 2 private schools to our community above the pre-K schools, it just will further dilute our student school populations. It'll reduce funding to our public schools and, maybe introduce potential further reductions by the school district. And, the other thing about schools is that, they bring communities together, and communities rally around these schools with events like athletics and parades and fundraisers and events. And if we're adding more schools to our already small population that has 4 schools in it, it's just going to further dilute these important community gatherings. And while I respect the desire to have a faith-based education, I worry about the location of it being already in a place that has so many schools that is so small. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have Andrew Wieski. Could you please unmute and state your first and last name for the record? Andrew? Okay, I have Annabelle Cordova Sosa. Annabelle?
Didn't you already call her?
She raised her hand again. She lowered her hand and raised it again. So Annabelle, please go ahead and unmute and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Aníbal Córdoba Sosa. I'm a resident of Incline Village, where I've been living with my wife and 3 children for more than 10 years now. I'm a director of a local nonprofit serving families in need in the entire North Tahoe region. and also a member of the Pastoral Council of St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church. Today, I'd like to fully support implementation of the regulatory zone amendments in the Wood Creek zone that will allow for permanent operation of St. Clair's School in the area. Its presence is critical to our community thriving and helps address an acute need as it allows families to access school choice for their children, expanding education opportunities that will ultimately reflect on a healthier and safer community. School options in the area are extremely limited and for many Latino and working families hard to access due to different factors that act as barriers, creating serious inequality in our community. The presence of St. Clair's also contributes to the fulfilling of the founding principle of religious freedom in the form of an educational project that serves the broad population. Since its inception, St. Clair's offers supports and assistance to access its services to virtually every family interested in providing a faith-based education to their children. Without an expanded educational offer, the Incline Village community will not be able to offer its year-round residents, its workforce, sustaining the community, a place to live and raise their families, reinforcing its concerning social and economic disparities, and sadly pushing them to leave the area to seek new opportunities. St. Francis of Assisi, where St. Clair's operates, has been in its current location for over 50 years. So for decades, it has been functioning with far more activities involving much higher traffic and numbers of children than this school will add to the location. These activities include Mass, 4 times per weekend, weddings and funerals, most weekends, weekly religious education classes that include over 100 children. And this doesn't include any number of currently permitted use community events, such as concerts, public talks, day retreats, etc. The church itself has a capacity of roughly 300 people and can be safely used for its permitted volume. The various uses over the past 50 years have barely raised any notice from neighbors, and those events have regularly brought in much more traffic than what the small school that we can safely house does and would in the future. The Development Commission should be confident that this DCA will not increase risk and that any specific concerns of the broader community can be mitigated in the terms of a special use permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Larson, please unmute. State your first and last name for the record.
Hi, my name is Peter Larson. I am a teacher at St. Clair's. I'll be brief. I'm speaking in support of the amendment. I've been in Incline 25 years, my entire life. I went to St. Francis growing up as a child. Me and my 4 brothers, we would run around the church all the time. My parents were okay with it. The students that were my age too at the church, we would play at St. Francis, and there was never any safety concerns. There was a concern, or one comment spoke about the concern of our small community and dwindling student population. I would point again to a previous comment about the wait list for the Lake Tahoe School and the Village Church preschool. I think this clearly demonstrates a demand for school choice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Andrew Viski. Andrew, please unmute. State your first and last name for the record.
All right. Hi there. My name's Andrew Vichy. I hope you can hear me. Sorry about the problem with my mute before. I'm a direct neighbor of the church and the property on Kelly Drive. Literally, I am the first driveway when you pass the church. Nobody from the church has reached out directly to me to talk about this. So the comments about the church doing that and being neighborly, that's not my experience as the owner of this property. But I want to take a step back and think about, or comment on what this is. This seems to be a rezoning attempt, right? So I appreciate that, faith-based education is what folks are talking about, and that's what matters. And I get that. We're talking about rezoning a residential neighborhood, right? And putting something here that wasn't here before, and that's a school. That's in 2 different locations. The Kelly Drive turnoff from Mount Rose, where the church is, it's right next to Mount Rose, right? So you can't really be in this area without either dealing with Mount Rose or Kelly Drive. And the traffic we're talking about, it's not just happening, on a random Sunday morning, right? It's happening during commuter hours. So that's part of something that hasn't really been talked about, is that the traffic is impactful. There will be more cars, and those are concerns. But for me, the zoning is really what it comes down to. There are 3 parcels that are over 3 acres, right? And some of them are, those are county services, right? And then we have the churches. Nobody else in this neighborhood can really do this. So this zoning benefit doesn't really benefit the majority of the people who live in the neighborhood. It benefits the church. What happens if this changes? Can a larger school be built? Can other people buy parcels? You've heard from other commenters here that they thought that this was still a temporary use meeting, right? This hasn't been clearly communicated. You've heard other neighbors talk about how, the comments that were given at meetings, they weren't really filtered upward. I even tried reaching out to the Planning Commission. They didn't respond. The planner did not respond to me on this. Previously, the temporary use permits that were approved, some of the changes made to traffic, to garbage, to noise, those are things that she had to put in because the church wasn't thinking about that. And we consistently have to remind for those things. So I think more time to think about this, more neighborhood outreach, in a really serious thought process on like the rezoning and what that means for the long term, I think is really important. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have Stacy Phillips. Stacy, please unmute and state your first and last name for the record.
Hi, yes, my name is Stacy Phillips. I am for allowing these churches to provide schools, kindergarten through secondary, faith-based education to the children of our community. Faith-based schools are imperative to our Incline Village community as they provide a school of choice. We would be forced to commute long distances to provide our children with the foundational faith-based education schooling we cherish so much. There are great benefits of school choice for an overall community with increased competition. To hold faith-based education daily in school, we need to be in a church setting. Please let us continue to have this freedom. Church land should be maximized to support all ages, all week long, giving it nonprofit status and property. Wherever a church already exists, the land should be expected to be a bustling community-facing hub. In regards to traffic, the Village Church is actually located on a major artery through town called McCurry Boulevard, where both schools are positioned in safe distances from the major roads. The current local public school has managed to adapt to meet traffic concerns, which is something these faith-based schools have already done and will continue to do. Please keep educational schooling a choice in Incline Village. Allowing our schools, allowing our children and other children in our community the opportunity to continue attending these wonderful faith-based schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have no further public comment in chambers. I have no further hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, well, if there's no more further public comment, then we're going to close the public comment period, and we're going to bring it back to the board for questions. Do we have any questions for the applicant or for the planner or anybody? Go ahead.
Question for staff. Courtney, is there anything written into the code amendment with regards to faith-based anything?
The Tahoe Area Plan defers to the TRPA Code of Ordinances for definitions of this particular use type, and there is no differentiation between a private or a public school.
Okay. What's before us is not an application for a special use permit for a school, correct?
Correct. And the special the community and would be addressing a lot of the specifics that have been raised related to possible capping number of students, based on parking, traffic concerns. A lot of the specific issues that have been raised would be addressed through a special use permit and conditions of approval, and that would go before the Board of Adjustment.
So if we approve what's before us tonight, that only creates a pathway for any of the owners of these 6 parcels, which includes these 2 churches, but also the state of Nevada and the General Improvement District and Incline, if they want to come and make an application and go through the process of specific approval to, at that point, apply to start a school.
Correct. So it'd be limited to those parcels 3 acres or more, and it does include, the IVGID parcel, Washoe County parcel, as well as the state of Nevada, and then of course the 2 churches. If change of ownership or otherwise occurs, they would have to go through that special use permit process similarly.
Thank you.
Have any more questions? Okay. How many more, I got some questions for you, I'm sorry. How many more steps are required to, if we do approve this regulatory zone change, which is what we're here for? We're not here to give them approval to open a school or anything like that. We're doing a regulatory zone change to allow any property within the Wood Creek regulatory zone with 3 acres or more to have the words kindergarten and secondary and school in there. That's all we're here for. How many more processes are there above and beyond this if this gets approved tonight? I think I counted 6, but I could be wrong.
Yes, correct. It's probably our most, I don't want to say difficult, but arduous processes in the county, because it is subject to the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency's approval. The TRPA adopts the Tahoe Area Plan as a whole document. And so if it were to go through the process and the Board of County Commissioners, we got all the way there, then we would go through the TRPA process. So to kind of briefly give a high-level view, if there was a recommendation of approval tonight, it would go before the Board of County Commissioners for first reading, because this would be adopted by ordinance. There would be a second reading, so that's the second public hearing. If it were to be adopted, it would then go before the TRPA Advisory Planning Commission. The Planning Commission would make a recommendation, and it would go to the Regional Plan Implementation Committee, and that's the committee that we talked about earlier that held the informational meeting in September. And they're essentially making a conformance review with the regional plan and the request, and then it would go to the TRPA Governing Board.
Okay. And so with regards to this regulatory zone change, that's probably why there's no traffic study or anything like that, because that would be on the SUP side, right?
Correct. The engineering division did indicate in their comments that would be something that subsequently would be required as part of the use permit process as a condition of approval, a traffic impact report. However, staff did request of the applicant and Ms. Lane that they do prepare those reports and were provided to you. Even though that's not a county requirement, we're not looking at adopting those. Those will need to be adopted by the TRPA, and they did provide some preliminary reports related to traffic and road impacts.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, with that said, I have read through this. I have listened to public comment, and for what we are here for, I'm in full support of this, personally. Go ahead.
So if this gets approved, they still have to go through the special use permit process. Yes, they do.
Can you speak into your mic a little closer for us, please? Thank you.
If this is approved, they still have to go through the special use permit process. And in that process, if it comes to this commission or what have you, could we add extra conditions to that use permit before we approve it?
So Each of the proposed sites would apply separately for their special use permit and go through the process where we send it out to agencies, our partnering agencies and applicable county departments. At that time, we would be receiving conditions of approval that would be associated with the special use permit. A special use permit goes before the Board of Adjustment. And while it's not common or probably preferred that at the DS you are adding conditions of approval, that is something that can occur at the public hearing, but typically we want to be able to include and disclose those with the applicant prior to.
So we can do that, but I would imagine if that did happen, that you would want to continue the matter. You have to re-advertise the public hearing and go through that process. Is that correct?
Correct. I think it would depend on the substance of the condition of approval. For instance, it's not uncommon, maybe a proposal is to add some trees in a certain location. I don't know that that would warrant, re-noticing or postponement, but if you were to add significant condition of approval, yes, we would probably want to make sure that the scope of the project was properly advertised and provided to the public prior.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Somebody want to make a motion?
Commissioner Lazareski, I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission recommend approval of WDCA 23-0001 to amend the Washoe County Code Chapter 110 Development Code within Article 220 Tahoe Area, Section 110.220.275, the Wood Creek Regulatory Zone, as reflected in the proposed ordinance contained in Exhibit A1. I further move to authorize the chair to sign the resolution contained in Exhibit A on behalf of the Planning Commission and to direct staff to present a report to the of this commission's recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners within 60 days of today's date. This recommendation for approval is based on the ability to make all four findings within the Washoe County Code Section 110.818.15E.
Commissioner Donchik, I second that motion.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us on to 9 chair and commission items, future agenda items. Do we have anything we want to see? No? Requests of information from staff. Okay, number 10, director and legal counsel, anything from report on previous planning commissioner items, Mr. Lloyd?
Yes, at the October 10th County Commission meeting, the County Commission approved the Master Plan and Regulatory Zone Amendment for the Lerner-Lemon amendments. You may remember those. And this coming or next week, November 14th, the County Commission will be hearing Envision Washoe 2040. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Any legal information that we need to know?
Jen Gustafson for the record. I do actually have legal information for you today, which is very rare for me. Some of you may remember several years ago, the Planning Commission heard an abandonment case on Paiute Road up in, I believe it's in Crystal Bay. And that abandonment decision was appealed to the BCC, who upheld the Planning Commission's decision. And then Mr. Algohary, who is a neighbor on that road, filed a petition for judicial review in district court. The district court upheld both the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners' decision. And then Mr. Algohary appealed to the Nevada Supreme Court. Recently, a three-justice panel on the Nevada Supreme Court upheld the district court's determination that there was substantial evidence in the record to support the Board of County Commissioner and the Planning Commission's decision. So that fell in the favor of the Planning Commission. Unfortunately, the case is not entirely over, however, because Mr. El-Kahari has filed a petition for rehearing recently in the Nevada Supreme Court. So it's entirely up to the court whether they will entertain the petition for rehearing or not. And I will keep you posted on any updates to that case.
Wow, thank you. All right, let's open it to general public comment here at the end. Do we have any public comment?
I have no public comment in chambers. I see no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, then that moves us to adjournment. Meeting is adjourned. It is 7:44. Thank you, everybody.